All right, guys, we're going to be going over file types and saving. So we're going to go over Illustrator file types, export file types, and then if you guys have any questions, as always, you can email them to me or you can ask me in class. So all of the software that we're using has a lot of different file types that we can use, but we're going to focus on this one about the Illustrator file types because Illustrator covers um, basically every single type of file type except for a PSD, which is just a Photoshop file. So we're going to go over these. It'll cover basically everything that's done in the other softwares, oh, except for an InDesign file, which is an INDD or an INDML. But we will go over that when we talk about packaging our InDesign files because they're the program type files, so AI, PSD, IND, INDML, they each have their own things that are very specific to these products. And the other file types we're going to talk about are kind of file types we use all the time. So Illustrator allows users to save in many different formats. So you can do an AI file, which is an Illustrator file. We can do a PDF, an EPS, an AIT, an SVG, a JPEG, and a JPG, a PNG, a TIF, a WEBP, and an SVGZ. It all sounds like Greek right now, but we're going to go over each of these and you'll understand what each one is, how we use it, and what it's used for. And I'll try to give examples as to where you would use them. I don't remember if I included them in the lecture note, but I know we talked about them in class. So an AI file is the native vector file type for Adobe Illustrator. This file type allows you to open a design in Illustrator and manipulate the graphic with no impact on the resolution. So an AI file can only be used with Adobe Illustrator. As far as I am aware, as of the time of recording, there are not other programs that can open an AI file. They may be able to convert the AI file into an acceptable file format for that software, but it's not going to be able to open the AI file as it is as an AI. An AIT file is an Adobe Illustrator template, and it is a file extension in Illustrator that allows the user to create a template that can be shared among other Illustrator users. So this is really great if you work at a company and you've created a business card and you've created an Illustrator and you want to be able to share it with multiple people, but you want them to follow certain rules and regulations. You don't want them going rogue on the business card. So you can create a template that means that they have to follow certain rules that you have set up within that template. And this is really great if you have multiple designers or, you know, you're sending it between different parts of the company that each part has different designers so everyone's on the same page. So a PDF is a portable document format and is an essential file format used mostly to save forms and other Word-based documents. However, this is an excellent file format to use when you want to share a file but not allow for major modifications. You can also set it to allow no modifications at all. So PDFs are, you can modify a PDF, but you cannot modify a PDF easily is kind of where it's at. So you have to take the time to find something that will, you either have to have software that can modify a PDF or you have to go to you have to find a software that'll modify a PDF, which isn't as easy as it sounds. So you can also password protect PDFs. You can make sections that can't be changed no matter what. A lot of government files, so if you download like tax files and stuff, you have to, there's parts of them that you won't be able to edit unless you take them into certain softwares to be able to edit them. And you have to have the knowledge to do it, which the general public doesn't. You can also, the really cool thing about PDFs is that you can put them in things like Adobe Acrobat and you can set up the parts that people can fill out. So one of the things that I did on one of my jobs is that we were sending out a survey to all of our guests because I worked at a bowling company, so there were, and it's a big bowling company, so there were a lot of people we had to send this to, like thousands of people or more. I wasn't given an exact number. I just had to make the form. So we made the form as a PDF and we put in spaces where they could fill out information or they had check boxes that they could do and they could just tick them. So you could do it on your phone, you could do it on tablet, and you could do it on your computer. This was super easy because I created the form in InDesign, saved it as a PDF, took it into Acrobat and was able to make the changes I needed and then sent it on. But PDFs are one of the safer options for sending out documents that you don't want modified or you only want certain modifications made. A PNG is a portable network graphic and is a type of raster image file. This file type is extremely popular for its ability to handle transparent and semi-transparent backgrounds. However, it cannot handle compression as well as a JPEG file or a JPEG. So PNGs are the files that you see that where the background is missing, or like it has a transparent background so you can see through it, or maybe it's a semi-transparent background so you can sort of see through it. These are really great to keep size down. We use them a lot on websites. They're really great if you're having to put a PNG into a software. So sometimes some art softwares that aren't within Adobe will require you to put in an image, and if you don't want a background, a PNG would be a great one. It's a great option. It, however, does not handle compression as well as a JPEG would. So a JPEG, or a joint photographic file group, is one of the most commonly known and used file formats in the world. This file type is able to compress impressive amounts of detail into a shareable file size. JPEGs are most useful in storing digital images such as photography. So most of us have dealt with JPEGs. We've dealt with them most of our lives, and they are phenomenal for keeping information and keeping it in a size that is usually shareable. I say that because you can make really big JPEGs. They're smaller than they would be if they weren't a JPEG, but there's still so much information that there's no choice but for it to be that way. We see JPEGs all over the place, so you see them in publications, you see them on the internet, they're very prevalent. A TIFF, so a TIF, is a tag image file format, and I apparently forgot an F on that. That should be a TIFF. So a TIFF file is a format that stores raster images and image information. So photographers use these a lot so as they can store high quality images with tagged information. So a TIFF is really great for if you want to put information like when your photo was taken, what camera you used, what ISO you used, and all that kind of stuff. And you want to like tag who was in it and all this other information. It's not going to be a small file size, but it is really great if there's certain information you need. TIFF files are also somewhat helpful in Illustrator because you can send photographs that have, so one of the things I did when I worked at Bridgewater is that they would take archived photos that had been photocopied on this really expensive photocopier that like pulled out information and kept it, and it was a lot of information, but I could pull it into, take that TIFF file and pull it into Illustrator, and it was smaller than if I had taken the JPEG file that the printer also created. So depending on the situation and how the data is stored as to which of these is your best option. So always be aware of that and kind of know that there's multiple different types that you can use. Depending on what information you need and how much space on your computer you have to manipulate that. So our next is an EPS, which is an encapsulated PostScript, which is a vector file format that is standard. So EPSs, so we've talked about vector and rasters, and I just want to do a quick reminder that a raster file is a file that we cannot resize larger because it will pixelate, and a vector is one that we can resize using mathematics that the computer does. We don't have to do that, thank goodness. So just keep that in mind as we're talking about these. So the vector file, and this being standard, means that you can share it between vector softwares without having the same exact software. So that means that you could create an EPS from Illustrator, and then you could give it to your friend who uses, we're going to say Blender. I don't actually know if Blender can do vector files, but we're just going to use it because I don't have another software in my head right now. So you could send it to them on Blender, and they could still open it even though they didn't do it in Adobe Illustrator. An EPS is also normally smaller than most program files because it doesn't store some of the information that like my AI file does, where my AI file remembers the 37 steps I did last time that I might need to revert now when I reopen it. Your EPS isn't going to remember any of that. It gets rid of extra information that's not needed, so like stuff on your artboard that you just have there that isn't necessary, it's going to chuck that away. So this it's really great to share your work with other artists and sometimes even with printers, depending on which file type they want. Some printers want EPSs, some printers want PDFs, some printers want both. So that's something to be aware of and to know that that is there. I'm trying to think if there's anything about EPSs. A lot of times, oh, another thing is EPSs can also be locked down to where they cannot be edited. So say you have a company logo and you don't want people changing it in their vector files because they decided they didn't like your blue-green color scheme and they think it needs to be like green and chartreuse green and like a neon purple. You can take an EPS and you can lock it to where you can send someone your logo and they can resize it as they need to, but they can't change the colors in it. They can't change anything about it, so they can only resize it, which is really nice if you're sharing this with multiple people and making that means you can make sure that no one can mess with it. So our next file type is a WEBP. These are relatively new. I do want to put that out there. So this is a web picture format. This has probably been, I don't know, I feel like in like the last 5 years has kind of been gaining popularity, maybe a little longer. But this is a modern image format that allows for smaller file sizes with richer imagery. They load quicker on websites and have superior compression compared to PNGs and JPEGs. This, however, doesn't mean they're always the best option. So this sounds really great. Great, they're great with compression. They load quickly. They have all this extra stuff. But depending on what you're doing, they may not be the best option. There are programs that won't open WEBPs. Some software doesn't open them well, even if they have them. PNGs and JPEGs are still standard for most things. So that's also something else to know is that when you're sending things to people, a WEBP, they have not gained enough popularity yet that a lot of people accept them. So most websites want PNGs or JPEGs. Most places where you can upload files want them. I don't even think Moodle has a space for me to allow you to even submit a WEBP. So that's something to be aware of as well, is that this is a newer file type, and while design moves quickly, certain parts of design do not, and file types is one of them. You can see this in that I think it's Mac has a file type that their images save as. I don't know if they still do, but they used to, and you used to have to convert them. So my Android phone will save a JPEG for a high resolution file. I can import that into anything, but Apple phones for a while, and I don't know if they still do, had a like an HD. It's not an HDMI, it was like an HDV file or something, but they had a different file format, and they thought that that was going to become the primary file format for everyone. And as far as I'm aware, it has not taken the JPEG by storm yet. So it's still one that we don't use primarily. And that's something to know as well, is that even if a file format is super great and super wonderful, if people don't take it on board, it may never go any further than just being like out there and then gone. So we have the last two types are SVGs and SVGZs. So an SVG is a scalable vector graphic. So this is a web-friendly vector graphic file format. This is another file format that is standard and can be shared among many programs. The advantage of this file format is that it has support for interactivity and animation. So if you've created a vector file that has animation within it. So in Illustrator now, you can actually create animations and 3D animations if you know how to use the software, and then you can save these out as SVGs and it keeps any of the animation you've put in. An SVGZ allows you to compress your SVG file. So depending on which one you get, if you get an SVG, you know it's a normal one, and if you get an SVGZ, you know it's a compressed SVG file format. So basically, these allow you to share vector file formats with interactivity and animation. But they're also web friendly. So when you upload them onto the web, so if you put them on a website, the website's going to load quickly. It's not going to have a lot of problems loading up that image and causing the website to lag or not load well on a mobile phone and that kind of thing. And then the SVG just allows you to compress it in case it's too big. So those are those are the basic file types. There are others that we may use and that we may look at, but those are the ones you really need to know because they're the ones that are the basics for graphic design that you will see the most. If you have any questions about these, please feel free to email me, let me know. I'll do my best to answer all your questions.